I'm Julia, and welcome back to my channel, NB Library. So, I've been known to go on Reddit every now and then, not so much as I was a few months ago, but I am participating in the r/fantasy bingo, and I saw a post on there a few weeks ago saying, we're halfway through r/fantasy 2025, and I commented, we're halfway through, I'm almost done, because I don't do reading challenges by halves. And then someone responded to my comment and said, oh, if you're looking for another challenge to do, r/FemaleGazeSFF is doing a fall and winter reading challenge. And Alexander wept, for there were no more worlds to conquer. And then one of his generals said, look over there, there's another one. So I hopped on over to r/FemaleGazeSFF, and I'm very excited to participate in this challenge. So it runs from September 2nd to March 20th. I'll link to the official announcement post down below. It's super helpful. It's going to go into more detail than me. The gist of it is that there's a bingo board, and you can try and get a bingo or a blackout. I'm going for a blackout, obviously. And then there is also a B-side version of the board, and so you can swap in any of those prompts on the corresponding space on the board if you feel like that's a better fit. I have already started, but I wanted to go over my TBR since I am not that far along. I am participating in the women power mode, which just means that all of the authors have to be female. For the very first square, which is nature theme, I am actually substituting out a square from the B-side, which is death theme, because I have the perfect book that's coming out in a few weeks, which is Psychopomp and Circumstance by Eden Royce. Eden Royce is one of my favorite middle grade authors. I read a book of her short stories, but this is her adult long form debut. So this is a novella about a woman, I believe during the Reconstruction era in the American South, and she is sort of chosen to be the next psychopomp in her family to kind of usher people into death. That's my understanding of it. So I'll be reading that for this prompt when it comes out. Next, the square is bicolor cover. I'm substituting out monochrome cover. I have a few different options for this square. There are a few different bicolor and monochrome covers that I could choose, but I'm going with The Summer War by Naomi Novik because that is also coming out soon, and I'm excited to listen to it on audio because the audiobook narrator who did The Witch Road, which I enjoyed earlier this year by Kate Elliott, is doing the audiobook for The Summer War, and I'm excited about The Summer War. Naomi Novik's like fairy tale retellings like Spinning Silver and Uprooted, I have certainly liked, but there's always a glaring issue in that there's like a okay male love interest, and then just off to the side is a fantastic female love interest, and it goes heterosexual every time for some reason. But The Summer War sounds good. It's a novella, so I'll also be reading that when it comes out. For folk horror, I have actually already completed this square. I read What Stalks the Deep by T. Kingfisher. This is the third book in the Sworn Soldier series. I love this series. T. Kingfisher writing a non-binary protagonist is one of the most like incredible things in my life. She's my favorite author, and in Sword Heart, Zale is my favorite character. They're like a tertiary character. They're a non-binary lawyer. I love them to bits. I keep emailing Ursula to give them their own book, and she keeps not responding, but I get kind of the same euphoria from reading the Sworn Soldier series. This book creeped me the hell out. I couldn't stop listening to it, read by the amazing Avi Roque. I have listened to all of these audiobooks because they read them. And there were some extremely creepy moments where I was screaming, Ursula, no! And it's set in Appalachia. Usually these books are set in Europe, at least the last two have, because Alex Easton is from Europe, but Ka gets called in by an old friend to help solve a mystery in an Appalachian, like West Virginia coal town, and I already don't like caves. I think they're quite creepy, and I've just seen too many caving videos about people getting stuck in them, and then there are just kind of the typical T. Kingfisher creepy things going on. So I really enjoyed that, and I just always get so much gender euphoria from those books. Speaking of Kate Elliott, for Animal on the Cover, I am going to be reading King's Dragon, which is by Kate Elliott. This is the first in a series, and I might include this in a vlog that I've been working on for a while, which is sort of like an 80s, 90s fantasy vlog, so you might see my longer thoughts or me reading that in a later video if that ends up getting made. But I have been very excited to read this ever since I read The Witch Roads, and this series seems just super fun. It's set in a sort of like alternate Europe, or, you know, European history with the serial numbers filed off, but there seem to be really strong characters, lots of female characters, and it's sort of like a subtle matriarch a little bit, so that has a horse on the cover, so I'm going to be reading it for that. For author's name begins with A, I have a few options and I'm leaving them open, and I'm also choosing to interpret this as author's first or last name starting with A. So my options are Small Miracles by Olivia Atwater, which the author unabashedly said this was inspired by Good Omens, so, you know, I had to read that. Spellbound by Ali Theron, The Curse on Spectacle Key by Chantal Acevedo, The Singular Life of Aria Patel by Samira Ahmed, and The Corruption of Hollis Brown by Kay Ankrum. So I will let that one sort of be a mood read, or like which audio can I get from the library, and allow that to steer where I go with that prompt. Next is Blood or Bone Magic. I struggled a little bit with this one, and I have a book in mind, but I might kind of see in the books that I'm reading if any of them apply. I can also sub in from the B side the Poison or Alchemy square. I was looking through this challenges page on the story graph for ideas of what other people had selected, and someone said When They Burned the Butterfly, which comes out later this year. It has fire magic. I don't know if that counts necessarily, so that's like the one that I have penciled in for now, but I might need to do something else if that ends up not fitting. I do still want to read that book, it just might not fit for this prompt. I've already completed the square for murder mystery. I read Murder by Memory by Olivia Waite. I've been really excited to see what Olivia Waite writes next after she finished her sapphic historical romance series. She hasn't written anything for a while since then. She is doing romance reviews for the New York Times, so I'm sure that keeps her busy, but I have wanted to read another book by her. So Murder by Memory came out either earlier this year or last year, and it's a slim sci-fi novella, and it sort of has as the main character like Bernie Wooster's aunt, basically, like from 20s and 30s fiction, the like aunt with a hapless nephew, but the aunt is the main character and she solves crimes on a generational spaceship, and she's queer. That was fun. I loved the details of it. I feel like so often with sci-fi, and one of the reasons that I don't read it as much as I do fantasy, is that there just aren't enough interesting details about living. It's all hard gunmetal and metal floors and boring walls. In fantasy, I really love the coziness of like a tavern built of wood that's cozy and there's a fire crackling, or furs, or, you know, the smell of spices, all of those like tactile sensory details that immerse me so much. I find missing in a lot of sci-fi, unless it's cozy sci-fi, which can sometimes deliver that, like my queen, Becky Chambers. And Olivia Waite is very much in that vein of cozy sci-fi here. It is a sort of, in keeping with that 20s and 30s mystery literature, having a kind of Art Deco aesthetic. People have pocket watches, they call them that, they're basically phones. There's someone who can make cocktails, which when you taste them, you don't get drunk, you experience a memory. So you're like, I'll have a summer storm, please. And it's not just the name of the cocktail, it's you're actually experiencing someone's memory of a summer storm. So for being a very short book, this is probably like less than 3 hours on audio. I really liked those details. For the Women Loving Women relationship square, I just finished yesterday We Unleash the Merciless Storm by Taylor K. Mejia. This is the sequel to We Set the Dark on Fire, and it follows a different character and has a different POV than the first book did. And I'll talk about this a little bit more in my October reading wrap up, but I was disappointed by this book because I felt like whereas We Set the Dark on Fire is a pretty unique YA book with a pretty unique main character who doesn't fight, is very practical, really keeps her emotions in check, and then a character who's like a badass fighter and quippy. I felt like we kind of lost what made We Set the Dark on Fire so special. There were some parts of it that were very, very predictable, so much that I was a little bit mad at the main characters for not figuring things out sooner. Like I said, I'll get into that later. I used that for the Women Living Women Square. For the bottom row, for a translated work, I'm substituting in local author because there is a book that I'm really excited to read. I think it might be weird, but I am really excited by the premise. Tauhou by Kotuku Tatiwa Natal. This author has both Coast Salish and Maori ancestry, and this is a speculative fiction book about what if Vancouver Island and Aotearoa were side by side. So I am quite excited to read that one. I'm hoping to read it soon. For vampires, I'm reading The Vampires of El Norte by Isabel Cañas. I've been hearing a lot about this author in the last few years, and I am excited to read it. I have it on hold because I was hoping to read it in October, but I think a lot of other people had the same idea, so I might not get to it this month, but that's okay because I have plenty of things to read this month, so it's actually better if this comes in later. For East Asian author, I have a lot of books to choose from, but I am really hoping to read Ocean's Godori by Elaine Cho because I've also been hearing good things about that lately, and the sequel came out this year, I think. But I'm also might end up reading Dreamslinger by Gracie Kim. Finally, for Afrofuturism, I have two different books that I can read. One is Death of the Author by Nnedi Okorafor, or a nonfiction book called Afrofuturism, which is a book, I believe, by the Smithsonian that is a companion to an exhibit that was at the African American Museum in DC. I have heard really good things about Death of the Author. I read an excerpt to see if I would like it, and I think that I will. Problem is, I've read the entire Binti trilogy, and I tried reading Who Fears Death, and I tried reading Akata Witch twice, and I just don't think that she's for me. I think her writing style and me just don't get along. I don't think she's a bad author. I can't click with her work. But I am hoping to read and enjoy Death of the Author. That is my entire TBR. I'm really excited about this challenge. I just love doing reading challenges, period, and I love any kind of themed sci-fi reading challenge or reading challenge specifically about women and female authors. So thank you very much to that Reddit user for pointing me in the direction of this challenge. Thank you for watching. That'll be it from me today. Please let me know down below if you're participating in this challenge and what books you are reading.